Hello there and welcome to the Go Ahead Dublin Championship show here on DubsTV. On episode 5 this week, we're going to be taking a look back on a big weekend of action in the Go Ahead Dublin Senior 1 football quarter-finals. Plenty of thrills and spills and excitement across the weekend. We're going to be looking back on the 4 quarter-final games and looking ahead to what's in store for the semi-finals the weekend after next. A little bit later on, our club focus this week looks at Erin's Isle and the great work being done in the Finglas area to promote Gaelic games in and around the Erin's Isle area. We're going to be joined by the Erin's Isle Chairman Paul Campbell to discuss all the work and the challenges they face as a club as well. First up, though, it's football. Okay, we're joined this week by former Dublin footballer Barry Cahill and by DubsTV's Oisin Langan to discuss the weekend's quarter-final action in the Go Ahead Dublin Senior 1 Football Championship and look ahead to the semi-finals as well. Hey, guys.
Derek, how's it
Hey,
going?
Derek, how are you?
Great, thanks very much. A quick reminder of the quarter-final results over the weekend and wins for St. Jude's over Thomas Davis, 3-14 to 15 points. Lucan Sarsfield's edging out Ballymun Kickham's, a big surprise there. Many people's books, 116 to 18 points, the final score in that one. Ballybowden St. Enda's comfortably beating Castleknock 217 to 111. And a real tight one in the last game of the weekend. Kilmacud Crokes just about edging out Nafina by 111 to 12 points, a 2-point victory for them. The draw for the semi-finals took place afterwards, live on DubsTV. St. Jude's versus Lucan Sarsfields is the first of the semi-finals, and Kilmacud Crokes versus Ballybowden St. Enda's will be the second of the semi-finals coming up in a couple of weeks' time. We'll start with maybe the big surprise of the weekend, Barry. In a lot of people's books, maybe not so much in your books, was it a surprise to see Lucan Sarsfields beating Ballymun Kickham's? Obviously, Lucan were, I think, 6 points clear at one point in the game. Ballymun came back into it in the last 5 or 6 minutes. I know you weren't at Parnell Park on Saturday evening for the game, but was it a surprise to see Lucan come out on top on that one?
Yeah, it was. Ballymun weren't firing on all cylinders, compared to last year anyway. But I think last year was a bit of an anomaly in that obviously the club championship took place before the intercounty season, and that gave the Ballymun management team and players a really great opportunity to build up a bit of cohesion and sort of collective training and matches, and they were very well prepared for the Dublin Championship last year. They won the Dublin Championship quite comfortably because they basically had all the county players fresh and available and training day in, day out. And I think they probably would have went on to win the All-Ireland club title if the provincial and All-Ireland series had taken place. So I think for a lot of people, Ballymun still would have been favourites this year. They didn't really hit the heights during the round robin games there that they played. They edged the likes of Thomas Davis and a couple of other games, but I really felt they might click into gear once they got into the business end of the championship and into the knockout stages. And it just didn't happen for them. But a lot of that is down to Lucan. I saw the game, they really put in a phenomenal shift, and credit to them because they have had a number of lean years there where there wasn't a huge amount happening for that particular team and that particular group of players. So they're going through the motions, and they didn't really produce any sort of eye-watering displays or results for a number of years, but they seem to have really come good this year. They were very good in their group matches, and certainly they were full value for their win against Ballymun. I know Ballymun had a black card in the first half, but they did build up that lead, and I think they were well deserving winners in the end. And yeah, it did send sort of shockwaves around the Dublin Club Championship season and beyond, because Ballymun are such a sort of high profile team and everyone knows the quality that they have. But this type of win against a real contender and champion in Ballymun will do wonders for this Lucan team's confidence. And they've a lot of momentum now going into the semi-final, and for them and Jude's, they have avoided the two big guns. So both of those teams will really fancy their chances of getting to the final.
Yeah, big time. Oisin, you were on DubsTV commentary duty for the game. A deserved win for Lucan, in your opinion. They fell behind early on, but came into it in that third quarter. Kieran Smith's goal, a brilliant goal, kind of the big turning point in the game for Lucan. Your opinion? I mean, they again, as I mentioned, they were 6 points clear heading into the last quarter. So they had a healthy enough lead. Ballymun obviously coming back into it and drawing the game level. But overall, over the 60, 65 minutes, did you feel that Lucan deserved their victory?
They absolutely did. I want to give credit to Ballymun, and the one thing about Ballymun is they're not interested in credit, they're interested in winning. But despite all the injury issues they have, despite the fact that their form has not been good this season and they've paid the price for that now, they battled on, they soldiered on, and they deserve an awful lot of credit for that. An awful lot of other teams would have given up the ghost and they would have not even made it out of the group stages. But Ballymun somehow found a way, and almost found a way, in a game that they didn't deserve to win. Lucan were absolutely immense. I think Barry has outlined it very well there. Brendan Gallagher used to play for Leitrim, has that kind of inter-county experience, and just looked like a guy you could give the ball to at any stage and he'd make something happen. And it's always good to have a guy like that in your team. But they had great runners. They worked incredibly hard. They made the right decisions when they needed to. And in the end, when it was down to that kind of winning or losing moment, because they could just as easily have lost the possession there, and Ballymun could have broken up the park and got the score to win it. They kept their composure. They ran at Ballymun. They kept doing what they were doing. And Brendan Gallagher stepped up and popped over the free. And I was speaking to him afterwards. And I said, you were right in front of goal, so it's a gimme free for you. But given what was on the line, given the historical nature of the win that it would have been, and I'm saying that in a future tense because he would have been thinking about what was about to happen when he was taking that free, was there pressure? And he said, yeah, there was pressure. But, you know, in fairness to him, he just nailed it. Him and his teammates were absolutely immense, prepared very well by Dave Cullen. They've got that nice mix of a few older lads like the likes of Brendan Gallagher, but they also have a few minors coming through who all worked under Dave Cullen as well. So whatever Lucan have done to get their squad in the shape they've done, it or whatever Lucan have done to get their squad in the shape that it's in, it's worked, and a hat tip to them. But they played well. They deserved their win. This wasn't a grab and go. This wasn't a sucker punch. They deserved their victory. But look, I do feel certain elements of sympathy for Ballymun. They had something like 12 players who weren't 100% fit. Some guys played injured and still left it all out there. So there's a lot to be admired there.
Yeah, Barry, a word on Ballymun, I guess. We've mentioned the fact that, I mean, they didn't click at all during the whole year. And obviously during the group stages, they came back and beat Thomas Davis the first day. They were behind and came back. So they showed plenty of fighting spirit in the group. It wasn't like they didn't, you know, no way it seemed like they didn't care, because they certainly came back and, like I say, beating Thomas Davis the first day. Getting the draw against Skerries Harps, literally grabbing the draw with the last kick of the game against Skerries Harps, and beating Clontarf as well. And like I say, 6 points down here and came back to draw the game level. They just didn't click as a group, I guess, was the issue in terms of form. I mean, is it the obvious thing? Was it the fact that they had so many players, you know, away with inter-county? Was that the big issue, or what do you feel was their issue this year in terms of their lack of form?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a very tough job for any manager to try and integrate a number of intercounty players back into your setup when you haven't had them for 4, 5, 6 months. I mean, you have your core group of club guys, which is great, and they're playing all the league games, the challenge matches, and then leading into the championship. But you're basically getting back intercounty players who are sort of broken at some point in terms of maybe physically or emotionally drained, or you know, they just had a tough run at it from an intercounty perspective, and you don't know what frame of mind these guys are coming back into. They're also very much more in tune with the intercounty setup in terms of tactics and style of play and that type of thing. So it is a real challenge for any manager to do it. We had it with Bridget's for a number of years. I remember 2002, we had 6 players on the Dublin Senior panel, and we ended up getting knocked out in the first round of the championship post our Dublin All-Ireland semi-final defeat to Armagh that year. So it is a real challenge, and that's why they benefited from it last year. But yeah, look, this Ballymun team, maybe they're going to go into a little bit of a transition. You know, they've had a phenomenal group of players there. To me, they've underachieved in terms of they only got 2 championships out of it in 2012 and last year, considering the core players that they had. But they're very much still going to be there or thereabouts. But it is a really tricky one, because you're getting county players back when they're not at their peak. You know, they're on the wrong side of where they peaked during the year. Like a lot of those guys would have been peaking for sort of July time, August. As you get towards Halloween, they're not really quite at the same pitch of it. So, and even the goalkeeper as well, Evan is a top class goalkeeper, but there would have been a different goalkeeper in there for the last 4 or 5 months with different kickouts and strategies and all that type of stuff. So it is hard. But like, full credit to Lucan. they've obviously been preparing well. They've been putting in the work over the last number of months. And like in the midfield pairing of Darren Gavin and Emmett O'Keneela, like it's very hard to come up with a better midfield pairing in club football than them two. They are two serious footballers. They both have inter-county experience with Dublin, but they're just really good, solid sort of club players that you'd like as part of your team that any successful club team needs. And they're very good at providing a platform for the rest of the team to develop and get enough ball in. And obviously Brendan Gallagher's the sort of marquee guy inside, and certainly Jude's are going to have to put a bit of a plan in play to try and limit him, because he's probably the form forward in the championship at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
Barry, you
word of praise
mentioned.
as well for the Newcombs. They were absolutely excellent, and hopefully they can get Emmett back for the semi-final, because he'd be a huge loss now. Obviously, they got through the last game without him, but look, there were so many guys in that team that stood up, and they used to say that about finals. And look, obviously Barry will have far more of an insight into this than I ever will. They used to say that about big games or finals. If you have 5 guys who excel, 5 guys who play well enough, and then it's about the 5 guys who you're not sure about. Well, if there was 5 guys they weren't sure about plus the bench, they were sure about them afterwards, because they stood up incredibly well and played incredibly well. The interesting thing with Ballymun is it might not get any better for them next year, because it's the vote of Congress means we get the same system as next year. So it means that Ballymun have a block of players that are coming in late, and it's about how they get through the championship. Maybe, just maybe, the fact that Dublin didn't go all the way this year, and maybe the fact that they're out early now, they might be able to get a bit of a rest. They might be able to regenerate a bit, and then by the time it gets to next year's club championship, if all has gone well for them in Dublin, they're fresher and they're enthusiastic, and they're physically well and they're mentally well. But there's no givens here for Ballymun for next year, or for any team. But just looking at that, I kind of found it interesting that if you're a club manager looking at Congress last weekend, you might think, okay, now it's okay, I know what I have to plan next year. And for some counties it's not good, for other counties it might work out. I don't know.
Barry, Oisin mentioned Brendan Gallagher. You mentioned Brendan Gallagher as well. Obviously, I think he scored 9 points the last day. Has been one of the stars of this championship. They have a good, nice blend there, a bit of experience there, and obviously the likes of Darren Newcomb, Harry Ladd, Mark Lavin as well. A lot of younger guys coming through. Nice mix for Dave Cullen this year. Can they? I mean, you mentioned already they've avoided Kilmacud and Ballyboden who were the kind of 2 teams you would be looking to avoid if you were Lucan or Judes, and they've avoided them in the semi-final.
Yeah.
So they have Judes to face in the semi-final. Certainly, not much easier in compared to Crokes or Bowden, but still they have Judes in the semi-final. If they can get through Judes, if they get into a county final, and anything can happen in a county final, can they go all the way this year?
Absolutely. There's no reason not. And you mentioned about those young players coming through. Like for any seasoned player, and for maybe the likes of Emmett and Brendan Gallagher, who's been playing for a number of years at this level for their club, there's such a high value on getting those younger players into the setup. They bring a new level of enthusiasm and appetite and freshness to it that some of the older lads just probably have it sort of left them at that stage. And I know with me and St. Bridget's in 2011, I've been playing basically since 2000, so about 11 years under my belt. And you become a little bit tired of trying to get that championship, and you do need that fresh blood to basically give you maybe a bit of a jolt to try and get you going again, because it can be hard. The Dublin Senior Club Championship is so hard to win. It's so cutthroat because it's at such a high level year in, year out. If you're losing quarterfinals, semi-finals, or maybe not getting out of your group, these young guys coming in bring that sort of fresh impetus, and they can really drive you over the line. And also they come with very little baggage as well. So for some of the older lads who might be a little bit used to losing the big games, and we would have seen a little bit of that with Bridget's as well, these guys coming in bring such a high value to it. And yeah, look, I think for Jude's and Lucan, when they were watching the draw on Sunday after the other 2 quarterfinals, avoiding the big guns would have been massive for them. And I think both of them would have been quietly confident in terms of the draw that was made and would fancy their chances. I think it's probably 50-50, or maybe give Jude's the slight favourites because they're a little bit more experienced to get into the latter stages of the championship. But who's to say that they can't get over the line? Once you get to a semi-final, you're very much in the mix, and we've seen it before in the Dublin Club Championship. A lot of it is built around momentum. If you can build a nice bit of momentum, get a nice mix of your senior and newer guys together, and also if you can keep everyone relatively injury free, that can go a long way, because playing football at this time of year, you have matches every 2 weeks. You're coming into maybe the tougher weather conditions as well as you move into November. If you have your top 20 players available to you, that can be huge, because we've seen in the past how substitutes have come on and sort of got teams over the line. So look, there'll be a real bounce in training in Lucan and over in Jude's when they went back training on Monday or Tuesday night. Looking forward to the next 2 weeks, and it's great for any club footballer. It's exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, big time. So it is Jude's versus Lucan in the semi-final. Jude's beating Thomas Davis by 3-14 to 15 points the last day. An 8-point win, Oisin, maybe slightly harsh on Thomas Davis because I think it was a point in it, right, with about 5 minutes to go, and 2 late goals. Tom Lahiff and Seamus Ryan scored late goals for Jude's to see them out pretty comfortably in the end by that 8 points. But I mean, I know Jude started the game very, very well. Thomas Davis came right back into it. But overall, do you feel that Jude's were the deserving winners in the game, even if not by 8 points, certainly the deserving winners to go through?
Absolutely, they were the deserving winners. They're a really hard-working team. That's not to say Thomas Davis aren't. It's just that I think Jude's quality up top maybe told in the end. And when you've got a player like Seamus Ryan to come off the bench, a guy who's so experienced, a guy who does not look like he's in his mid-30s, he's running up and down the pitch, and a guy who took his goal very well, it says an awful lot about your club. Jude's have some hard runners. Pat Spillane can cut through defences. Mannix, when he went down injured, I'm sure there was a moment of panic on the line, and Gareth Roach must have thought, oh, I hope he gets up here, and he did, and he soldiered on, and he's an excellent footballer. Then you've got Niall Coakley, who will get you a score when it's needed, and Tom Lahiff, just like, he makes the right decisions all the time. He never looks under pressure, and this is what I like about St. Jude's. That kind of permeates through the team. None of them ever look under pressure with the ball. They always take the right option, and they're always provided with an option as well. But look, I did fancy Jude's for that one. Thomas Davis, they're one of these stubborn teams, so you wouldn't have been surprised if they came through. But I just think that little bit of quality in the forward division told, and also as well, St. Jude's bench is quite impressive. When you can bring on Brian Coakley and Seamus Ryan, and there's others as well, you're in a very, very, very good position. And I hope that Gareth Jones got to enjoy his brother's wedding afterwards, Derek. I know he was rushing off. His brother Will got married, a decent Junior B footballer, I'm told. But yeah, look, it was a good day for Jude's, and I don't think anyone can argue with the result. And they've been tantalizingly close over the last number of years. And there's a few of the older guys in there, and you just get the feeling they're just so desperate to win it. And it's going to be an interesting tie with Lucan in the semi-final, because I think the two of them will see it as this could be the year. You know, we've put in the work, we've got to the semi-final, and again, without knowing what's going on inside their camps, but I think Barry nailed it there. I don't think they'd ever say it publicly, but I think if each of them were asked, who would you like to get in the semi-final, Jude's would have said Lucan, and Lucan would have said Jude's. And they've got that. So it's about who can handle the occasion quite well. And as we've seen from the two of them, they're both good at handling pressure occasions, but this maybe is another notch up. This maybe is something a bit different. But St. Jude's especially will feel maybe that they've left Dublin Championships behind in the last couple of years. And for some of the older players, perhaps they're running out of rope. But that's not to say that they can't do it this time or maybe in the next couple of seasons. But that'll be a very intriguing semi-final. I can't wait for
it. Barry, as mentioned there, as Oisin mentioned there, they have been in finals and in positions like this, St. Jude's, a few times over the past few years. Is this year different insofar as their blend in terms of, like, you know, they've been widely known for many years as being very difficult to play against, but maybe struggling a small bit then to score at the other end of the pitch? It's been a bit different this year. I'm looking at some of the scores this year that they posted. Their opening game 1-14 against Lucan Sarsfields. Their second game 3-17 against Plunkett's, 2-23 against Round Towers, Lusk, and then 3-14 at the weekend. Some big scores posted there over the past few weeks. So they seem to have changed things up slightly so that they're maybe not as, I guess, so that maybe it's more free flowing in attack, which is what they maybe have struggled with up to now over the past few years. Have things changed from this year, and could that be the difference between them just about not getting there and actually getting over the line?
Yeah, I think you've nailed it there, Derek. In previous years, certainly they've had a defensive system in place and been quite defensive minded, so that they have conceded very low scores in a lot of their championship matches. But when it's come to the business end against the couple of the top teams, and they've actually beaten a lot of top teams over the last few years to get to quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals, but on that particular day they just haven't been sort of offensive enough or attack minded enough to get enough scores to get them over the line. I think, yeah, defensively they're still very solid. Obviously, they've only conceded 1 or 2 goals in the entire championship. Didn't concede any goals to Thomas Davis the last day. 314 is an impressive score to rack up at this time of year against a decent Thomas Davis team who obviously got to the final in recent years. So, and it seems as well that they've got those number of goals over the last 4 championship matches that they played. They're not really as reliant on Kevin McManaman as they would have been in previous years as well. There seems to be a better spread of scores there.
Has he changed his role? Barry, sorry to jump in there and sorry to jump across you. Have they changed his role? Is he now more of a fulcrum? As in, when Kevin Mack got the ball before for Jude's, it seemed to me his job, and why not give him this job because he's very good at it, was to cut through defences and take a score or get the pass off. Now it seems to be a bit more lying deep and kind of going as a playmaker, and his runners around him. And also, they just have a more potent forward line as well, with the likes of Mannix. Coakley, I know, has been there a while, but he's kind of settled in there. Sweeney supporting that forward line. Pat Spillane Jr. in there as well. So has Kevin Mack's kind of role changed in that sense?
I think it has, yeah. Now that's I've probably come with age, but of experience as well. That he is well able to play that role, but he was obviously most devastating from a Jews perspective and Dublin perspective when he was getting the ball and being direct and getting close, going straight for goal and using that sidestep and that low centre of gravity that he has to get the scores. But yeah, certainly he can play that sort of playmaker role where he's coming out and getting the ball deep and sort of trying to control the game a little bit more on Jude's terms. And I think that's a really smart play by the management to have him in that particular role itself. And I think, you can sense on the management team and the group as a whole, they're a little bit more comfortable and confident that they can get those scores. There's been matches previously in big games where they've got 11, 12 points. Like, that's not going to win you a championship. But you mentioned even the game that they played Lucan in the early part of the championship. That'll be interesting for both teams to look back on and see how they've evolved and what areas they might be able to expose. I think for Jude's, if they are ever to get over and win a championship, they would have had to have moved away from that defensive system. It's still there in part, but it's not overly as defensive. And I think their transitional play is a little bit slicker and a little bit quicker out of defense. It's not as maybe methodical, and whereas previous they would have kept the ball a bit more and went sideways, etc. They're more confident in transitioning the ball out of their defense and trying to get the ball up as quickly as possible. So, I think they've come up a couple of notches, shall we say, in terms of ticking as many boxes as possible to become a Dublin Senior Club Championship winner. And I think I've had conversations with Kevin McManaman before in recent years. He is desperate to get that medal and get that cup to out to St. Jude. It would be massive for the club and for the area there if they did manage to do it. But yeah, I suppose it's one step at a time. So they've a formidable team to get over first in Lucan.
And a word on Thomas Davis, Oisin. Obviously they'd be disappointed to miss out on a semi-final place, and the final scoreline again was a little bit harsh on them. But it's been a good year for them overall. They got out of their group. They pushed Ballymun all the way in the first game and ultimately came up short in that game. But they've put in some very brave performances. The brave performance again at the weekend. They'll feel like they're building something there. Kieran Farley will feel like he has the core of a group of players there who can build on this year, a pretty positive year overall if they look back on it and build again heading into next year.
That's certainly true. There was a couple of what I call crossroad games in this championship. So if Skerries beat Ballymun, who knows what they could have done. The same as Thomas Davis and Ballymun. If they'd have won that game, who knows what kind of path they could have gone on in the championship. And I know they got out of the group, but maybe the quarterfinal might have been, I won't say easier for them, but for whatever reason, Jews just seem to have their number that day. But look, for Thomas Davis, I guess if you've been to a final recently and you don't get back there, anything you do after that isn't matching that achievement seems like a disappointment. But of course, that's not necessarily the case, because you're developing your players, you're developing your squad, and we've seen how tough the Dublin Football Championship is. And it's not one of these championships where you have teams who are kind of just there because they're there and they're a senior club and they love being a senior club, and that's, they'll always have that. That's not the case in Dublin. So actually getting out of your group, actually staying as a senior championship club in Dublin is a big deal. Look at St. Vincent's. I mean, All-Ireland champions a couple of years ago, now they're in Senior B. That'll tell you how tough it is to even retain your status in Dublin, let alone go far in the championship. But look, I think Kieran Farrelly will have learned an awful lot from this year. They've got a good squad of players. A bit like St. Jude's, maybe they just need to evolve it up top a bit. Or maybe they just had an off day against St. Jude's and faded in the end. But look, I think they can take an awful lot of positives from the season, and they're in my opinion, not going anywhere. I mean, in a good sense, as in they're going to be around in that conversation, potentially as an outsider for championships in the next couple of years. But certainly, if they're a team who should now be a regular of getting out of the groups, and then you build from there, and that's something to build on. That's something to look forward to for next season for Thomas Davis. But again, it's very easy to say, oh, next year. Now these guys have a couple of months of sitting down and kind of thinking about it, and maybe it's about the work you do now, the gym work you do now, the plans you put in for next year. But look, it's a tough place for Thomas Davis to be in, given what they gave, and to be out in the quarterfinals. But I think there's an awful lot more positive about Thomas Davis than there is negative.
So they were the two Saturday games, St. Jude's beating Thomas Davis and Lucan Sarsfields getting past Ballymun-Kickham's. On Sunday, Barry, Ballybowden St. Enda's opened the day with victory over Castleknock, 217 to 111. Bowden running fairly right in the second quarter, and the two goals, Aaron Waters' goal and Kieran O'Reilly's goal for Ballybowden, kind of pretty much killing the game as a contest. Certainly Aaron Waters' goal early on in the second half. How impressed were you by Ballybowden St. Enda's, Barry?
I was very impressed. It was funny watching the game live. They looked quite comfortable on the ball, and they were doing enough, and all of a sudden there was like a 7 or 8 point lead out of nowhere. It was just like slowly kicking the scores and taking the scores and the right options, and all of a sudden the game seemed to be out of sight from Castleknock. But look, Ballybowden are a phenomenal outfit. I think they're of inter-county standards, and they'd probably maybe win Division 4 and probably hold their own in Division 3. Not only are they very good footballers who are intelligent and comfortable on the ball, they're phenomenal athletes. Just looking at them live in Parnell Park, they are in serious physical shape, and they've guys there, particularly around the middle third. Those 8 players in particular, half-backs, 2 midfielders, half-forwards, those guys will run all day, whether it's 60 minutes, 70 minutes, 80 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever. They have so much in the tank there, and they've obviously put a huge emphasis on strength and conditioning and putting in the time. And that's not something you do over 6 months, 12 months. That's something you build up over 3, 4, 5 years. So Anthony Rainbow is fortunate in that sense that he has this quality group of players who are so committed and are thereabouts pretty much every year. And look, they have the two Pascals. Those two guys are just top quality footballers. Ryan was very good on Saturday, and Collie Pascal is just an out-and-out brilliant footballer. I'd love to see him get more proper game time with Dublin next year, because I think he can really get to the next level. But for any team coming up against them, it's very difficult to see where the weaknesses are, and also to combat all their strengths, because the two Pascals were excellent the other day, but throughout the whole team they were very good. I mean, they did a very good containing job on Kieran Kenny. They managed to nullify him throughout the game. Seamus O'Carroll did get a bit of joy against them. He won a lot of ball, but was a little bit inefficient up front. But I think for guys like Aaron Waters, who was absolutely phenomenal, I thought he was man of the match on Saturday. He's a very imposing midfielder. He's keeping Declan O'Mahony on the bench. And like when you talk even Michael Dara McCauley, who's gone travelling, they're not going to have him. He hasn't been missed at all so far. But other guys, are still there from previous teams. Like Simon Lambert was excellent as a wing back the other day, and he provides a huge amount of experience and leadership there. He kicked a couple of great points. Conal Keeney as well. But for me, it's the two Pascals are the key to Ballybowden winning this championship. And for any team who are coming up against them, you're going to have to put a plan in play to try and curtail their influence.
Oisin, you were on DubsTV commentary duty for both of Castleknock's games this week. Their win over Ballantyre on Wednesday night, I think it was, in the playoff. And then they obviously played 4 days later against Ballybowden St. Enda's. What was that the difference? Was that one of the big differences in the end? Castleknock having 2 games in the space of 4 days, 2 big games in the space of 4 days, and obviously in the end, Ballybowden running out fairly comfortable winners in the end. What was that second game in 4 days? Kind of a bit of a killer for Castleknock?
I think it didn't help certainly. Now, I would have fancied Ballyboden even if they were both rested for this game. It's very, very difficult, I imagine, to get your body right so soon after such a big game, but also as well trying to get your plans right. There's an awful lot of information you probably have to take on board as a player when you're preparing for a game as big as this, and that can be quite difficult as well. And that in itself, I imagine, is quite tiring. Again, Barry would have a better insight into that than me, but Ballyboden, the way they move the ball, there's not much more I can add to it than what Barry has already said. They're big, they're physical, they're strong. I'll go one further than Barry. I think they'd survive in Division 2. I really like Warren Egan up front. I said it to Barry actually during the commentary. It's like having a third back squad because he's very similar. He's got similar attributes to the lads. Shane Clayton at the back as well, very, very solid. And they just have that look, they have that strong spine, quite literally strong, and they've got very experienced players. And you can bring Decky O'Mahony off the bench. You can imagine if you're out there and Decky O'Mahony's coming off the bench, you're thinking, okay, there's no need to panic here. This is, we can stay calm because he'll bring coolness onto the pitch. Conal Keeney's still doing it after all these years. That man is a marvel. He should be studied by medical science. He's just an amazing player. Declan O'Mahony would fall into that bracket as well, as would Simon Lambert, I think, at this stage as well. So look, Ballyboden moved the ball well, cut through defence as well, big, physical, and hard to stop. And I think it's going to be a massive clash with Crokes in the semi-final. I appreciate we'll talk more about Crokes in a moment, but I like the balance of Ballyboden. They've got the strength, but they've also got the skills. And at one point in the match, I said one of them combined ballerina skills with MMA skills. I should have said that the whole team is like a mixture of a bull and a ballerina. I meant that in a complimentary sense, by the way. I meant both of them. I meant both of them in a complimentary sense, by the way. The strength of the bull and the balance and nimbleness of a ballerina and the skills as well, of course. Not the bull down.
I think that was Aaron Waters' goal. Yes,
that's right. Yeah,
I think Aaron Waters' goal showed that. Yeah, exactly, because he took a hefty challenge on his way to a decent finish as well. Barry, you mentioned, the Mick McCauley isn't around this year. Rob McDade's been injured for the past few weeks as well. Not sure what his situation is. So they're missing two big players from their point of view. But it doesn't seem to really affect them. They have that strength and depth. You mentioned Declan O'Mahony on the bench as well. So they have plenty of strength and depth. Yeah. And lads bring off the bench if needs be. Could that be the difference? I mean, you need obviously a pretty decent panel. It's certainly if you got injuries, which they have with Rob McDade. And like the likes of Mick McCauley not being around this year. Is the strength and depth going to be the difference for them this year, maybe in terms of getting over the line?
I think so. And I think for Anthony Rainbow, he's very comfortable with the bench that he has. Like even Darren Nelson is there, Bob Dwan, guys like that who have been, really good sort of season campaigners for Ballyboden down through the years. They've Dublin Championship, Leinster Championship, and All-Ireland club medals in their back pocket, and they're still producing it at this level. So, and the thing about Ballyboden is, like, the two Basquels are there, but they have a really core group of 20, 25 guys that they'd have week in, week out. And I think for the two lads, they seem to slot in very well into their setup. There's very little disruption when the two Basquels come into the team. It's very natural, it's very fluid, and the big thing with those two guys as well, they're actually quite selfless. They're not guys who go out and say, right, I'm going to kick 2-6 or 2-8 and give me the ball and I'll do all the scoring. Those are guys that are well able to shift the ball off to teammates who might be in a better position at a particular time. So they seem to be ticking all the boxes in that sense. But I think for me, it's that power and energy and pace that they have around the middle third is a huge attribute. And you look at the likes of Mayo at intercounty level who are primed for Croke Park with, Paddy Durkin, Lee Keegan, Oisin Mullen, who have this power in their legs to go up and down the pitch. Ballymun have a number of guys like that who are well able to do likewise. And, even if they aren't clicking perfectly in a footballing sense and they're missing chances or whatever, I think they're well able to overrun teams. And, it's that stage with 10 minutes to go where you might have to tracking a fella for 50, 55 minutes where they can actually do, cause a lot of damage and make hay with a bit of a purple patch. So I think for me, Ballyboden, certainly the form team in Dublin and possibly in Ireland at the moment, and I just can't see any weaknesses at the minute.
One team is going to have to find a weakness for them the next day out is Kilmacud Crokes, and they just got past Na Fianna the last day. A real nail-biter of a finish of a game at the weekend. It was one of those games where Crokes looked at one stage like they were going to win it. I won't say comfortably, but they were going to win it. pretty comfortably, I guess, towards the end. But then Na Fianna came back into it in the second half and were absolutely superb in that second half, going close to knocking Kilmacud Crokes out. Obviously, goal chances galore for Na Fianna in the second half, especially right there at the very end. I think Aaron Byrne had a chance right at the very end to win it. A goal would have obviously won it, and it didn't materialize. Your opinion, Barry, I guess, on the Na Fianna Crokes game? You're obviously on DubsTV co-commentary duty with Oisin. Again, you could argue maybe that Crokes were a little bit lucky to get out of there alive, considering the goal chances that Na Fianna had. But do you feel overall that the result was deserved?
Just about. Those last few minutes was a bit of a scramble for Kilmacud Crokes, and obviously only with a 2-point lead, a goal would have actually knocked them out of the championship. So they did live precariously there for the last few minutes and into injury time. I certainly was impressed with them in the first half because I expected a lot from this Na Fianna team. You know, within Dublin GA circles, we've been talking about Na Fianna coming for a number of years, and they haven't quite delivered at all, apart from they beat Ballymun a couple of years ago under Desi Farrell, and all these great minor players and minor championships that they won, and, you know, a sprinkling of inter-county stars as well. They hadn't really produced it, and I was very disappointed with them in the first half. I thought they were very lackluster, very little energy about them, going through the motions a little bit. And certainly, you mentioned it there, Derek, you know, Kilmacud Crokes were comfortable, and they just had Na Fianna at arm's length, really. You know, they had that 4 or 5 point lead, weren't really stretched at all. And it was funny because it was only really after Conor McHugh went off at half time and Owen Merchant went off at the start of the second half, and it sort of felt like, you know, Na Fianna had nothing to lose here. We're after losing 2 of our main guys. It looks like we're going out of the championship. Let's have a go and bring it on. Sean Caffrey, you know, people might have said he should have started. Like, he was absolutely phenomenal in that second half. He scored 4 from play, was a constant danger. He looked like he was going to score every single time he got the ball. He was absolutely phenomenal, the performance he put in. And Na Fianna were very, very unlucky to not at least bring to extra time. You know, a goal at the death obviously would have won it for them because they were only behind by 2 points. There was a mad scramble, and Aaron Byrne just didn't get enough sort of power on his punch. It was a weak enough effort that was scrambled off the line. But Na Fianna actually had a goal chance about 5 minutes earlier than that, and Rory O'Carroll put in a phenomenal last-ditch block. So Kilmacud did look comfortable for long periods of the game, but it was only when Na Fianna started to run at them directly, and, you know, you had Owen Merchant and these guys with the ball, you know, deep in their own half in the first half, whereas I would have much preferred to see them running at pace at Kilmacud Crokes to try and expose them in the Kilmacud Crokes halves as such. And it was only when they decided to go for it that they looked like a really serious outfit. So I think Na Fianna will have a few regrets in terms of not actually going for it that bit earlier. You know, of all the matches in the quarterfinals, this was a great game for Kilmacud Crokes to have under their belt going into the semi-final, because it was a real serious test in the second half. It ended up being sort of back to the wall. It was point for a number of stages. And, you know, winning a tight game like that in that type of manner really does build confidence. So they won't fear Ballybowden, but they'll certainly have to up their performance, I feel, by 1 or 2 notches if they are to try and get over that semi-final.
Yeah, Oisin, as Barry mentioned there, I think Robbie Brennan, the Kilmacud Crokes manager, speaking to Shane Stapleton on DubsTV after the game, and he said they had to dig deep to win the game. And that was one of the big things. He was delighted that they had to dig deep to win the game, because they have been winning games. I won't say again comfortably, but they've been winning games and playing decent, free-flowing, attacking football. And this is maybe one of the first games.
Crokes lads are soft. That's what you're saying, Derek, isn't it?
Yes.
Crokes lads were soft. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I got the subtle dig. No, but you know what? Jokes aside, jokes aside, it was good to see them digging deep like that, because they did. And maybe there was a question mark there, and maybe they've answered that question, but not fully, because I suppose if you look at the 4 teams who are left in the championship now, the only satisfactory result for them in the championship is to win it. Anything else is a disappointment. But they dug deep, but they lived on their nerves. I mean, Barry mentioned it there. Rory O'Carroll, how immense was he? I mean, he was amazing for Kilmacud Crokes. Popped up where he needed to. There seemed to be about 2 or 3 Rory O'Carrolls out there. Paul Mannion worked incredibly hard, although they didn't over rely on him, which is a good sign from Kilmacud Crokes. Shane Cunningham, as I call him, Paul Mannion's twin, Shane Cunningham, did very well. Shane Horan kicked some nice scores. So look, they dug it out. They probably made it a bit more difficult on themselves than they needed to. I think Barry has raised a good point there that, funnily enough, in the second half, Na Fianna just maybe had a kind of a, well, you know what, let's just have a go here. Owen Merchant and Barry picked it up in the first half. I said, oh, that's a surging run from Owen Merchant. We haven't seen too much of that. And Barry said, yeah, but it's inside his own half. And then he and McHugh, well, Merchant went off early in the second half. McHugh went off at half time. Obviously, the two of them weren't playing 100% fit. I get why you'd start them. Like, if you've got players like that and they're in any way fit, then you probably do have to start them. But like, Sean Caffrey gave one of the performances of the championship coming on at half time. But look, for Kilmacud Crokes, they'll go on with a bit of confidence, but also it's that ideal situation of they got a bit rattled, they gave away chances, but somehow they found a way through. Now, against Ballyboden, they can kind of do a lot of what Castleknock did, but from the Crokes point of view, they'll hope to be able to do it a bit better because they've got an older squad. Castleknock, by and large, have a lot of young players. I know they've got still experienced players out there like Shane Boland and Graham Hannigan and boys like that, but they've got a lot of guys who are very good footballers, but they're quite young. For Crokes, they've got that nice balance of that bit of physicality, that bit of experience. So if there's anyone who can get at Ballyboden and get behind them and get the scores they need, it is probably Kilmacud Crokes.
And Barry, Oisin mentioned there some of the guys. I mean, they're like, obviously Paul Mannion's kind of the star man. Everybody knows about him, but they have other options in there. You know, it's not like you can mark Paul Mannion out of the game and therefore that nullifies the Kilmacud Crokes attack. They have other players there: Hugh Kenny, Tom Fox, Shane Cunningham, Darragh Mullen, who scored a cracker of a goal at the weekend. Plenty of talent in that attack. That you know, you can't just focus on the Paul Mannion problem on one corner and hope that the other guys stay quiet. They have plenty of talent in that attack, which could again be the difference in terms of their semi-final against Ballyboden St Enda's.
Yeah, they had a nice spread of scores against Na Fianna, and you know, that Na Fianna defence is a very good quality defence as well. So very impressed with Darragh Mullen. I think his goal was absolutely top class, and he got a very important point as well. I think the Fianna got it back to a point at one stage, and Darragh Mullen kicked a really good score at an important stage with about 10 minutes to go. I think I'd like Kilmacud Crokes to get him on a bit more ball. I think he was a little bit starved in terms of being a little bit not as direct as they should be to getting ball into him, because I think he had the beating of his man, and he had obviously that 1-1 under his belt as well, but just didn't get as many possessions. Shane Horn was outstanding, the Offaly guy, particularly in the first half. He was probably the best player on the pitch in the first half. Got a couple of really nice points, looked very comfortable on the ball around that middle third. And yeah, look, Paul Mannion only got a point, I think, on Sunday, you know, out of 111, so they certainly weren't over reliant. You know, Na Fianna probably had a bit of a focus on him naturally, as will Ballyboden. But you know, Paul is very much a big game player on a big game day, so he'll be looking to do a lot more damage against Ballyboden, and he has great pedigree and form there in terms of racking up high scores in Dublin Senior Championship semi-finals and finals going back the last 8-9 years. So I'd expect another level of performance out of him. But certainly special mention to Craig Diaz. I thought he was outstanding. You know, he's a guy that's been around the block for a number of years. He was on our 2011 Dublin All-Ireland winning panel. A lot of time for Craig as a footballer, and he just links the play really well. There's no nonsense. You know, he does it simple, but he's very effective. Kicked a lovely point in the first half as well. Goes about his business, and he's probably one of their key players, if I'm honest. And if I was coming up against Kilmacud Crokes this weekend in a match, I'd be trying to limit his effectiveness, because he certainly makes a lot of good things happen for Crokes.
Yeah, he was absolutely immense, Craig, and he's just a good fella as well. Like, and he's worked incredibly hard over the years with Crokes, and he's been desperately unlucky not to get more game time with Dublin, perhaps. Just on a bit of an aside, as people may be aware, I would be a Crokes member, and in Crokes we occasionally do an internal football sevens competition, and it's all mixed up. So you could be like me, Junior F. You know, I'll take Junior G if it's available. But you could be playing beside some of the senior guys, and I was playing in a team with Craig, and genuinely, even though I'm actually older than Craig, and at this stage I was well into my 30s, I was starstruck by the guy. But he's a really good fella, really, really good fella, and I was delighted to see him play so well out there, because no one takes football more seriously than him. No one loves that club more than him.
I hope you gave Robbie Brennan something to think about with your training performance, Oisin.
I told Robbie, listen here, take me for the final. Langy's a big game player. I'm not going to bother with this. Not going to bother with the Not going to bother with the first round stuff, quarterfinal stuff, semi-final. Chances are I'll be
peak in
working
November,
anyway,
yeah.
Robbie. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, an athlete, a prime athlete like me, peaks in November.
You'll walk into the team.
But both
I
teams would know each other
actually,
very well.
on an aside, right? I've always been curious to do this experiment. I wonder, could I survive even one hit on that pitch? I doubt it very much. I think you'd actually have to pad me up. Like watching the hits and hearing them and seeing the collisions, and it's not like they're dirty. It's just guys going shoulder to shoulder. The strength, the physicality. It is absolutely frightening. Like, it is frightening to, and that's not just the semi-finals and quarterfinals and the latter stages. It's actually, the first round, and you drop into division or senior 2 and intermediate. It's the same. The work that these guys and girls do, because I know the ladies' final is on this weekend as well. The same thing there, to get themselves in prime physical shape, because you'd have a lot of talented footballers out there, but actually the difference is the people who play at the top grade for club or county are the ones who do the work outside of that. I won't say it's easy to be a skillful footballer, but it's the people who put in the gym work and live a life, because you have to live the life as well. You have to eat well, sleep well, treat yourself, and it's like, it's not easy. So my admiration for these people is absolutely off the charts.
Don't mess with them, I think, is the message there.
Yeah.
Quick, before we go, I'm going to ask you your predictions for the semi-finals. I'm going to put you on the spot here. So we're going to start with St. Jude's versus Lucan Sarsfields. Oisin, we'll start with yourself for this one. Jude's versus Lucan Sarsfields. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I knew you'd put me first this time. Jude's against Lucan. I love a lot of what the two of them do. I love how they both play. I think Jude's have evolved up top, and as we were talking about there earlier on, Kevin McManaman is kind of a fulcrum. Now, he can still do those starting runs, maybe he just can't do as many of them. So for that reason, I'm going to go with St. Jude's. But listen, I could be left with an awful lot of egg on my face. I think there'll be two tight games, but I just have a fancy for St. Jude's.
And Barry?
Yeah, likewise for me. I think just Judes have evolved a little bit in terms of their game plan. They're not as reliant on their defensive system to keep the scores out and sneak a win. I think they have a bit more firepower up front, but it's more around the side of play and the fact that they are willing to commit bodies forward. They are willing to keep more players up in the opposition half, and the transition from their play is a lot more direct than it had been in previous years. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Jude's to edge that one by a couple of points.
And then Barry, we'll start with you for this one. Kilmalcook Crogs versus Ballybowden St. End is probably the big one, the semi-final that a lot of people will be looking forward to this one in particular. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people would have felt maybe this would be the dream final. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes, because both teams, they know each other very well. They obviously play each other every year in terms of the league. They played each other in the championship on regular occasions in recent years. So there's no hidden secrets here. There's no one that's going to come out of nowhere and win the game for either of the team. I think for Kilmacud Crokes, certainly I referenced it earlier, that Nafina game will really bring them on. Like, it really will sort of galvanize the team a bit more. It will that display of resilience at the death of the game to stay in the championship essentially against a good Nafina team is something that they'll bring into training this week and certainly bring into the game. I think they will need more from Paul Mannion. He had a very good game the other day, but I think they'll need more from Paul on the scoreboard perspective, in terms of keeping him closer to goal. I think they'll do that a bit more. He did seem to come a little bit deep against Nafina. My preference certainly would be, if I was involved in Crokes, to keep him as close to the opposite goal as possible. And if I was a defender with Ballybowden and I saw Paul Mannion 70, 80 yards away from my goal, I'd be delighted. So I think they'll move him closer to the goal to see if they can get a couple of goals there. I think they need to get more ball into Darren Mullen, who I think is a very effective player with massive potential. And from Ballybowden's side, I think it's just business as usual for them. They are so well drilled. They have such a sort of solid structure and spine to the team that Oisin has referenced. They go about their business very, very comfortably. They all know each other inside out at this stage. But so I'm going to go with Ballybowden on this one, just by a couple of points. I just think that they've no real weaknesses, and I can just see them maybe steamrolling is a strong word, but maybe just their power and athleticism is something that could really benefit them with a few minutes to go in the game, and they'll get the scores to get the win.
Okay, and Oisin?
Well, obviously my phone has been off for the duration of this, so if I have missed a call from Robbie Brennan and I get the shout for this, then obviously you have to go with Crokes. No, look, jokes aside, I'd agree with Barry. I'd go with Ballyboden just for all the reasons that he's outlined. I do wonder if you're Crokes, do you man mark the Basquells and Warren Egan, or is there any point in that? Because then you've got the likes of Darren O'Reilly and Aaron Waters who can run at you, and others as well. For Ballyboden, do you man mark Paul Mannion and take the risk that do you give him special attention, and then you take the risk that the likes of Horn and Cunningham could do damage? And it's about those guys stepping up, and we've seen it in the championship already. They absolutely can. So it's like tactics and your plan in this is very, very important. And I think you've got two really good tacticians and two really good planners in the shape of Anthony Rainbow and Robbie Brennan, and the teams around them as well, obviously, because Gaelic football is all about that now. It's not about the managers, but the teams around them. There are so many subplots. Like Ballyboden's transition, can Crokes break that down? Can Crokes turn it over and do damage high up the park? Ballyboden, the last day out, we saw them, like Shane Clayton was coming up to the 65 practically a lot of the time and taking ball comfortably, but Kilmacud Crokes would be a bit different to Castleknock. However, at times, and Barry has referenced it earlier on, Castleknock did get in behind. They just didn't do enough damage when they did, and maybe they just didn't do it often enough, but they did do it. And I wonder, do Crokes look at that, Barry? And this is me foisting responsibility. I wonder, do Crokes look at that and say, you know what, there's something here. We can actually employ maybe a similar game plan to Castleknock and hope it works better. Do you think they could do that?
Yeah, I think so, because Seamus O'Carroll got a lot of joy in terms of winning primary possession close to goal. I think he probably had 5 or 6 shots in the game and only got maybe one of them, and he had a goal chance as well just before half time. So certainly if you're looking back on that video, you could say, okay, geez, if we can get Paul Mannion onto that level of ball or that amount of ball, or Darren Mullen, we could be in here. In terms of the man marking, I think Kilmacud Crokes have a very good centre back in Cillian O'Shea. So I think Cillian O'Shea versus Collie Basquel, it could be the winning of the game, if Cillian can do a job and Collie Basquel and limit his effectiveness, that would go a long way towards a Kilmacud Crokes victory. So yeah, a lot of subplots, and even the kick out strategy. Ballyboden went short a lot of the time because Castleknock allowed it. Do they have to go longer in the against Kilmacud Crokes, which maybe might play into Kilmacud Crokes' hands a little bit? They seem to be very good on the breaking ball against Nafina, and they have a couple of good fielders as well. But 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a nice bit of time to actually put a plan in place, in terms of the immediate few days after the quarter final, and then start communicating out to the team. Maybe 10 days out from the semi-final, what you want to work on or where you feel you're going to get a bit of joy. So yeah, I certainly think there's going to be there would have been a lot of video analysis over the last 2 or 3 days from both management teams, to see if there's any little gap or any little area that they could try and exploit. But both teams don't have a huge amount of weaknesses, so it'll be very marginal.
And even from the kickouts up to now, you'd say for Crokes, they had a guaranteed ball winner from a kickout. If they needed to go long, if the short thing wasn't working out, Craig Diaz gets up and he gets it. Ballyboden probably have the artillery to take on Diaz, and vice versa, by the way, on the other side. So, like, the kick-out strategy is vital. Derek, we could be actually talking about this for another couple of hours, and I really need to watch back the 2 semi-finals 10 more times to give you, to kind of break down each individual battle a bit. I think that would be absolutely phenomenal.
The matchups will be important.
Yeah,
the matchups will be very important. So yeah,
and then it's about, again, going back to that thing of, you'll always have 5 guys who play well, 5 guys who break even, and then it's about the other 5 guys, what they can do. It could be like that. But look on form and from what we've seen so far, my tip would be Ballyboden. But for all the things that we've just discussed there, I think it could be a close match. And Derek, you could be in for a long night, because I think we might be getting extra time and potentially penalties, because obviously this has to end
and
on
substitutes as well. Maybe the Ballyboden bench edges it, but McGowan was missing for Kilmacud Crokes the last day. He was a late withdrawal, so if they can get him back into the fray for this game, it could be a difference maker as well.
Okay, so you haven't really answered my question at all, really, insofar as who's going to win. Well, Barry gave us Ballyboden. We'll take that one.
Oh, I gave you Ballyboden as well, but I gave you many reasons why it might be Crokes or Ballyboden.
Just covering himself.
Exactly.
Listen, I have to go back to the clubhouse, lads.
Yes. Barry and Oisin, thanks a million for joining us. Looking forward to two fantastic semi-finals coming up. St. Jude's versus Lucan Sarsfields on Saturday, 6th of November, 5:15 throw-in for that one. And Kilmacud Crokes versus Ballyboden, and then the 7 o'clock throw-in, Parnell Park, Saturday, the 6th of November. Barry and Oisin, thanks for joining us.
Cheers, guys.
Pleasure, Derek.
Okay, welcome back. Now it's time for our club focus slot, and I'm delighted to be joined by the Erin's Isle Chairman Paul Campbell. Paul, thanks a million for joining us this week.
No problem, Derek. Thank you.
I guess, Paul, you can start off by telling us a little bit about Erin's Isle. You're one of the older clubs, I guess, in Dublin, a club that a lot of people would know about for many, many generations. Tell us about, I guess, where you're based, how long you're in existence, and general information about Erin's Isle.
So our club is situated in Finglas, like Dublin 11. It was established 104 years ago in 1917, and by the returning men that were in captivity in Wales after the 1916 Rising. So our colours are green to represent Ireland and black to represent the patriots that were killed in the 1916 Rising. Numbers wise, we have approximately 1,800 members, and about 1,000 of them will be playing members. Within the catchment area, we've 13 schools, and they're all classified as DESH schools. So I think we have to be cognizant of the people that live in the area, as in, we're probably not as lucky as some of our near neighbours or outside neighbours where, we can charge a high membership, so our revenue has to be generated elsewhere. And a lot of times some of our membership is a lost leader. And we have to position ourselves in that way just to attract some young kids into our club. The marshalling of our schools is done by our excellent GPO, Laura Carolyn. On the downside, she does play for the Castleknock ladies football team, but on the plus side, she has I think she's kind of bought into our ethos of continually striving to improve ourselves, and we have seen a big influx of kids post COVID, and a lot of that would be down to her. In relation to the juvenile section, so there has been some great work done over the last decade. We kind of dropped the ball in the 90s after we had a lot of adult success, but we didn't capitalize on it. So probably over the last 10 years, we've had a fantastic juvenile committee and coaches, coaching our players and coaching our coaches. We do have a strategic plan that has been somewhat delayed due to COVID, but it's headed by some very talented individuals in Shane Casey and Kieran O'Hare, and they will be rolling that out. And the whole premise of that is to get our kids to reach their potential, and that's both on and off the pitch. On the field, it's to improve the style and manner that we play, and it's to improve the strength and condition of our players, and to have a better transition between our juvenile section into the adult section. And then off the field, again, it has been delayed by COVID, but for the last 6 to 8 years, we've had a very hugely successful educational program. So our club provides tutorial and grinds for 5th and 6th years, just trying to encourage as many of them as possible to try and get into college and to get the best level of education that they can get. And then when they get into college, the club will provide a bursary for, maybe entry fees and some costs that they may occur, or maybe money towards a laptop or some sort of electronic device that they need. And then when they get into college, then we'll also provide a mentorship program. So dependent on what you, what course, whether it's maybe computer science or accountancy, then we'll pair them up with maybe a computer scientist or a computer graduate or an accountant within the club, just to help them in that first 1 or 2 years of college. The adult section, so we have started to see the fruits of the work that the juvenile section has done. So the standards are improving. While we don't have any Division 1 teams, I've no doubt that we will be feasting at the top table in years to come. That's why I'm doing the job that I'm doing. I do want, in conjunction with a lot of other volunteers, wants us to be playing at the highest level. But we are where we are. So like our adult men's team, so we've got 3 adult men's football teams, Division 3, 5 and 10. And this is the business end of the season. So at the moment, it's the junior 4 are in the championship semi-final. Our Division 3 team, we have seen a lot of improvements. We've got an excellent management team in place. Again, volunteers, ex-players, coming back and putting it in. And I'm hoping that within the next couple of years, we'll see a rise up the divisions. Our adult hurling, so we're in Division 2, 6 and 9. So we've got a very interesting weekend ahead. So the 3 teams are in championship semi-finals. Division 2 are into intermediate championship. 6 are in Junior C, and then Division 9 are in Junior F. Turning to ladies football, we have 2 teams, Division 4 and Division 8. And this is the first year now that we've had 2 minor teams with one winning the Division 3 championship. And then our camogies come on leaps and bounds to the stewardship and direction of all-star, 18-year Dublin veteran Louise O'Hara. So we're in Division 2, 5 and 7, and Division 2 team won the Shield final there about a week and a half ago. So probably all in all, the club are in it's a transition period, but it's an upward trajectory, I think, that we're going in. And we've got some really, really good people, standing foursquare behind our push forward.
Great to hear. Tell us a bit more about the work you're doing at juvenile level. You're saying you've been doing that for the last 10 years or so, and Laura's doing great work there as the GPO in the club. How many underage members, juvenile members do you have at the club? And I guess where do they train? Where do they I'm sure Saturday morning is the place to be around the club as well. So tell us a bit more about the work that you do there at juvenile level. So
I kind of, from over the last number of years, my focus has always been on facilities. So it's a case of build and they will come. So on a Saturday morning, so we have started. So I probably will talk further later on about the redevelopment of our old pitch and puck course. So at the moment now on Saturday mornings, Laura and the team of volunteers have all the 3 to 6-year-olds. We call them the grasshoppers. I know they call different things to different clubs. So they'd be down there between 10 and 11:15. And then they've got access now up to our juvenile room. We have the coffee shop open. So we try to create a really good environment for the kids and the parents to come down to. And then the club from all day Saturday, it kind of empties out and then fills up again with the under 7s, the under 8s, the under 9s. So we do have multiple teams at every age group. So the place gets rammed. So we've got a pitch outside so we've got 2 senior pitches inside our gates and a juvenile pitch. So we have multiple teams and multiple games going all day Saturday and Sunday. And then we have Farnham Drive present outside the gate, where again that will be stacked and racked on Saturdays. The work to be done. It's been done by the juvenile chairman Paul Drum, LaGrania Gaffney and Ashley Draper. Just putting good structures in place, making sure that the coaches don't want for anything. Try and make sure that every coach has a foundation and then a level 1 course, and then we've got a lot of good things kind of coming down the pipe in our strategic plan. So a lot of it involves strength conditioning, and that can be applied to every age group as long as it's age appropriate strength conditioning. So we are starting to see the fruits of their labours coming into the adult section, and you're starting to see the levels and the standards of play are they get there, and when we can compete with Kinmacud and Ballybones and Endas and and Nafina and so on, that's when we know that we're doing the job right.
Brilliant. I guess the work you mentioned already, the work that you do, in terms of the community. You've spoken about the bursaries that you do and the kind of work you do in that regard, which is fantastic. Tell us a little bit more about that. Obviously, I mean, that's the kind of aim of a lot of GA clubs, and what maybe a GA club should be is a lot more than just what goes on the pitch, what goes on off the pitch as well. And you seem to be doing a lot of great work in terms of helping people get through college, which is a fantastic initiative in terms of getting people from around the club to help students who are starting off college.
Yeah. So like this probably derived from, say, a previous development plan going back maybe 10, 15 years ago. And one of the clubmen, Stan Brannigan, would have taken the bull by the horns, and he put a fantastic kind of program together with the assistance of a number of other people. So apart from the we would get, say, school teachers in and do grinds on, it could be the core subjects. Again, it expands every year. One of some of the big things would be to invite, say, past members of Erin's Oil that have made it big, such as we've got a few people that have developed very successful businesses, like Mark Murphy, who's the CEO of Finergo. So that's a 1.2 billion company. He came back and had a talk with us. Kevin Erie, he came back, the founder member of GameStop. So all these people coming back, saying what the club means to them. You're trying to inspire these young people that don't restrict yourselves. No, think big. So that's unfortunately, like we have been curtailed during COVID, but again, we have a team of people to drive ourselves forward. It'll be from 2022 now, and we know the importance of it. We know the importance of one of the big impetuses was that we needed to increase that transition from juvenile into adult, and this was one of those things. Okay, let's try this, and we tried it. It's very successful. It's well supported. It does cost a lot of funding, but with contributions from individuals and from the club, it's something that we find very, very important, and we will continue to fund it going forward.
Yeah, it's a really good idea, I have to say. So it's great to hear that. Tell us about the challenges that you face as a club in the area and in general. Obviously, COVID posed a lot of challenges for a lot of clubs. So tell us about the challenges that you face as well over the last 18 months, but also in general.
Like apart from no revenue coming in, which has been hard, but we were able to stay by stuff like with good kind of financial stewardship. We came out of it okay, so a bunch of us turned the negative into a positive, and we tackled some much needed improvements. Items such as we extended our gym, and then we restocked the gym just with more up-to-date equipment. So we do have a state-of-the-art gym there, so we don't have an excuse. We've created a function room that when we were to open, that it has created a revenue stream that we're starting to see now. And then we modernised our bar, mostly the seating area, updated the toilets, and then we introduced a hot food option as well. So probably somebody to say the broader challenges. So we had just finished phase 2 of the redevelopment project of the old pitch at Port area, and so I think in total we're spending about 450,000, between site clearance, the drainage works, the light base ducting for our new sand-based pitch. So our upcoming challenge in 2022 is now we need substantial funding for floodlighting and for the goals in that area and netting. So we have applied for a sports capital grant. So please God we are successful. But if we're not, then we have to go to plan B. Probably one of the other challenges that we've encountered is that we've engaged over the last year or so just with the Lewis Finglas route. So the new preferred route that's coming out in the next couple of weeks will the train tracks will be going through our pitch outside of our gate. So we do have health and safety concerns, as like everyone wanting to use our pitch in the newly positioned pitch, they'll have to cross over train tracks, a cycle track and a pedestrian track. So in fairness to the Lewis project team, headed by the Transport Infrastructure Ireland, their engagements to date have been very positive. So like we will work with them, but like we will lose the use of our pitch for a number of months. But that's just something that we have to work with. So that's due to come on stream now in 2027. So we're just playing the long game, and we just continue with a positive engagement with the with those with the design team. So
in terms of aims for the future, then, I mean, like you've spoken already about some of the work that you want to get done in terms of the pitches and stuff. Is there anything else that you're looking to grow? I'm sure continue to grow the club over the next 10 years. You've spoken about the work that's going on at underage level and juvenile level. But I'm sure one of your big aims is to try and continue to grow the club, and working to improve pitches and facilities as well.
Yeah, like from a games perspective, the greater level of transition between juvenile and adults. Like the only way the club is going to continue if that transition continues, and those adults playing at whatever level they are, then they put back in, that they become the next chairperson, that they become the next fixtures. They're the new coaches. So in order for the club to survive and thrive, that's where we have to go. Just from a previous podcast, I totally agree with the Night Borough chairman that having two teams, especially at our club size, we don't have the luxury of having 4 or 5 teams, at certain levels. Why some teams go ahead with it, I think it's absolutely ludicrous, because the losers are the kids that can't get onto a team. Us striving to have 2 teams at every age group is fundamental, just to ensure that every kid will get a game. Probably one of the things that probably in the short term that that I've been working at over the last, it's about 5 years now. I've been working with Dublin City Council on getting a full size all-weather pitch in the Finglas area. So this will be a municipal resource. So it will be managed through a limited company, and ourselves and Rivermount will be anchor tenants. So it'll be a fantastic facility for us. All the soundings have been very, very positive. So the latest feedback that we're getting is that the budget has been passed, so for 2022 and 2023. So the project is due to start next year with completion Q1 2023. So having a floodlit, full-size, all-weather surface, which will be about 600 yards away from the club gates, will be a game changer during the winter months. As you alluded to earlier on, I think we've something like 76 teams. Trying to find space for them, it's a premium. It's, Lewis is going to affect our Mellows pitch up in Finglas West, our pitch outside the gate. Each time there seems to be a road development between, the N2, where we lost 2 pitches in Salog, to the M50 being built, we lost a pitch there. We're continually growing, but we're continually losing pitches. So, green space is a premium, especially when you see the number of apartments that they're squeezing into the Dublin 11 area. I don't know if anybody's driven past it soon, but it's they're squeezing in thousands of apartments, which will be great for the growth of the area. But God, you have to put in the facilities behind it, and you have to support clubs like ourselves that are trying to do our best. And we are volunteer driven, but every bit of help would be very much appreciated.
Yeah, and you mentioned any help appreciated. There are plenty of ways. I'm sure there are plenty of people who want to get involved with a club like Erin's Isle, and plenty of people around the Erin's Isle area who would like to get involved. Tell us how they would get involved with the club, because a lot of people maybe might not know how to, drop down to the club or how to get involved with the club. So tell us how if you're in the locality or if you want to get involved with Erin's Isle, how to get involved.
Yeah, look, I'd implore anybody that wants to get involved, any ex-player. We have a golf society. Get involved in that. Get involved in some way, and then give back to the club. If you're in the area and you're not from a Gaelic background, but you want your kids involved, either come down on a Saturday morning. You'll see the vibrancy that we have down there. Ask anybody; they'll refer you onto somebody that will guide you in the right direction. If you're shy and you don't want to make that physical approach, just get onto our social media platforms, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. I'm sure there's a few more that I'm not on top of. But yeah, listen, where you are. Like, we don't have gates, because our gates aren't. It's not the fact that they're never closed. We don't have gates. We don't have gates for a reason. Everybody's welcome. Everybody is welcome. So come down, get involved, and just help us. Help us just, progress to the next level, at whatever level that is.
Great. So I know the website as well, erinsislegaa.com, I'm sure is a way to get involved as well. But as you mentioned, all the social media channels are dropped down to the club to get involved as well. A lot of great work going on at Erin's Isle. You can see that from the work you're doing both on the pitch, as you mentioned, juvenile and adult level, and also off the pitch. The initiatives you have to help the communities in education and things like that are fantastic as well. And obviously, a huge amount of good things happening in the future as well with the club in terms of facilities and pitches. We hope they all go very well for you over the next few months and years as well. Paul, thanks a million for joining us and telling us all about Erin's Isle.
No, but thanks, Dad. Could I just finish just by just wishing an old teammate, club and Dublin legend Charlie Redmond all the best. He's recovering in hospital at the moment, so wish him all the best, and let's drop down to the club soon when you've recovered.
Great stuff, and so say all of us here in Dublin GA as well. Paul, thanks a million for joining us.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Paul Campbell there, the Erin's Isle chairman. And that is the Go Ahead Dublin Championship show for this week. A reminder that the Go Ahead Dublin Senior A hurling semi-finals take place this weekend. It's Lucan Sarsfields versus Nafina, first up on Sunday afternoon with throw-in at 1:30, and Chemical Crokes taking on Coola with throw-in in that one on Sunday afternoon at 3:45. Match tickets are available to buy now on the Dublin GAA website. That's dublingaa.ie, and both games will be available to watch on your screens as well. Lucan Sarsfields versus Nafina is live on DubsTV on Sunday, again throw-in there at 1:30, and the Chemical Crokes versus Coola tie will be live on TG Cahir with throw-in for that one at 3:45. We're going to be back next week to look back on those semi-final ties. But for now, thanks for tuning in and goodbye.